you can keep your conniving morning. When you been a for a bum, in a bill every morning. Now because your money done, you come with conniving morning. When you had your pocket full, in a bill every morning. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me morning. Yes, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I know what you conniving morning. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I know what you conniving morning. Oh, Joseph.
Kissed by the warm breezes of the Caribbean, this orange beauty has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, large modern kitchen, and a living room with an open concept. This lovely home is within walking distance to the sea, where you can take a dip in the salt waters and feel refreshed. Verone's cheerful country manor, located at Tushin, West Coast, Demerara. Bookings are available on Airbnb. Contact Veronica at 516-524-1559 for more details. We hope to see you soon.
The Joint Opposition APNU-AFC and the WPA invite you to come rally against the high cost of living, corruption, extrajudicial killings, and rally for a clean voters list. On Saturday, the 3rd of September, at the Golden Grove Market Street from 4:30 p.m. Speakers include Opposition Leader Aubrey C. Norton, Leader of the AFC, Kemraj Ramjatan, Vince Roy Jordan, Kati Hughes, Reyes Rupnarain, Kadaki Amsterdam, Robin Simon, and Shaniqua Haynes. After 2 years, Guyana is at its lowest. It's time to mobilize. It's time for boots on the ground. Saturday, September 3rd, at the Golden Grove Market Street, East Coast, Demerara, from 4:30 p.m.
Well, come on and we will talk the thing. I'm going to be talking about issues. But in the meantime, between time, share the life, share the life, share the life.
Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler, and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For He shall give His angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder. The young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. Because He hath set His love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy.
Good morning, Dr. Hinds.
Good morning to you.
Welcome to the program. How you been?
Fine. Keep it on, keep it on.
All right, it's good that you have been keeping on. Today is International Day of the People of African Descent. UN declared. It is also a few days after the hosting of that symposium by Coffee 250, resisting the apartheid state, or resisting the, what we call it, developing, growing apartheid state. Emerging apartheid state. So let me start by asking you for your reflections on that symposium Sunday last, and some of the, what I would want to call achievements, some of the lessons learned coming out of that symposium. Share the life, folks. Go ahead, Dr. Hinds.
The first observation is that not one single media house carried the event, not one. An event that was advertised, well known, representing the coming together of half of our population, not one single media house. I can't vouch for all the TV stations, but I know none of the daily newspapers covered it. And so when we're talking about the state of African Guyanese in Guyana, that's what we have to deal with. Could you imagine Indian Guyanese having a major forum to discuss the state of Indian Guyanese and none of the media carried it? That's the Guyana that we live in. And that is why we are saying it's an apartheid state. It's not just the government, but also the major institutions of the country discriminate against African Guyanese. I repeat, not one of the daily newspapers, including the two independent newspapers. They both carried the letter by the Attorney General. They carried letters by Indian Guyanese commentators condemning the conference, but not a single word of coverage from the conference, not one. And that should be a chilling, stunning revelation of our African Guyanese as we ponder our place in Guyana. The media are referred to as the fourth estate, meaning that after the three branches of government, the media are as important as the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive branch. And the media, they often refer to as the fourth estate. Not a single word. Welcome to Guyana. Welcome to the African condition in Guyana.
You only gave me one. I said I was expecting you to continue to. I liked the takeaways because I asked for your reflections. So I will have to take it that that's the only reflection.
No.
You see, highlighting that for the media is kind of critical indeed, because for me, it shows, like you rightly said, not only this the government, but the institutions of the country. The media as the fourth estate, the media is usually for shaping, the media usually shapes the discussion, frames the discussion, influences, right? And here it is, a matter as important as discussing a rising apartheid state in Guyana. The media so far has failed to even report on it. It says to me that they are part of the problem. They're part of the apartheid, part of the segregation. And the question is, how did they get there? Why would the media be segregationists, why would the media be discriminatory against a particular group of people in the country?
Well, the media took the side of the regime, what we are calling the apartheid regime. The apartheid, so the media took the side in 2020. And as I've said, every week that I've come on this program from that time to now, is that there are consequences when you make certain decisions. In a disputed election, one would think that the media, certainly the independent media, would have taken a hands-off approach or a stand aside and look approach or an objective approach, which is here is a disputed election. It is not just an election between two parties. In effect, it's an election between two major ethnic groups in our society. And if you're the independent media or any independent institution, one would expect that you would take an independent position, which is not to take sides. But the media, all of them, including the two daily independent newspapers, Kaichor News and Stabroek News, came down on the side of one of the competitors. And so having done that, having given their blessings to the incoming government, they're saddled with that. And they've not worked out yet how to deal with the monster that they've created. That is the problem for all of them. Kaichor News slaps the government on its wrist for not renewing the oil contract. That's it. Doesn't go further than that. Stabroek News write some editorials that are mildly critical of the government. That's it. That's it. And so when you have an organization like Coffee 250 calling out the government for apartheid, they're never going to touch that, because it means that they would have supported the evolution of apartheid in Guyana.
Let me ask you, Dr. Hinds, apartheid South Africa, what were the roles of the media in apartheid South Africa? Either to uphold and strengthen the apartheid government or to cause its downfall. What were the roles?
The white media supported apartheid, hands down. There's no role. I mean, there was a white media and there was a black media. The black media was stifled. The black media had to operate for the most part outside of South Africa. But the white media supported the apartheid regime.
What are the dangers of the current media situation in Guyana?
In particular, what?
Okay, we're talking about a rising apartheid state. The media obviously is perhaps coy, as some people might say, about reporting on the discrimination, the vindictiveness of the state against a particular group of people. What are the dangers when a media or when the media in a country fails to highlight what I would say the wickedness of government?
Well, there are several media, right? So you have the state media, as in NCN and Chronicle, which historically have always supported whichever government is in office. Then you have the PPP-aligned media. So you're talking about Guyana Times, Freedom Radio, Hits and Jams, and so on. They're the PPP aligned. And then you have the traditionally independent media. So Kaichor News, Stabroek News. So you have different media in the country. And I suppose your question points to the independent media. And when the independent media fails to be independent, you have the
Since we have some internet connectivity issues, let's see if Dr. Hinds will regain his internet in a few minutes, a few seconds perhaps. Well, you're tuned to the Buxtonian Morning Time, and we're talking about the issues in the Guyanese society. Right now we're focused on the rising apartheid state and the role of the media. Okay, it seems as though Dr. Hinds was knocked off. Today is International Day for People of African Descent, as declared by the United Nations. Yes, Dr. Hinds was knocked off. He's connected, I think. He's connecting or connected. Let me see. Let's go to a quick advert break while I try to get back Dr. Hinds.
Never Joe, never Joe, never Joe. Oh, money, never, money.
I see you're back.
Yes, I don't know what happened there. I just got dropped.
Maybe they can't get us from this end, so they're trying at your end though.
But I was making the point about the different media, and that one of the consequences when the traditional media fails to cover half of the population, then you have alternative media, and this has always been the case. You go back to the 1970s and 80s under the PNC regime. You had the rise of the Catholic Standard, Day Clean, Open Word, which were the alternative media of the day. And you come now, we have the social media, which have become the alternative media. So one of the consequences is you have the rise of alternative media, and therefore the competition for media space. And we heard recently where the traditional media was criticizing social media, saying that, you know, people are not trained journalists and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you are not doing your job in a fair and impartial way, you are going to get the rise of alternative media. One of the big consequences is that people are going to be mobilized against that media, and you would get things like boycott. So the Chronicle, for example, in the latter part of the PPP 1992 to 2015, we called for a boycott of the Chronicle, and African Guyanese boycotted the Chronicle. And even when the government changed and the Chronicle started to support the government supporters weren't buying the Chronicle. And I think if the media continue to discriminate against African Guyanese, we will have no choice at some point to call for a boycott of those media houses. Because from what I've heard, people who have done the studies, the majority of people who buy newspapers are African Guyanese. They buy the Stabroek News and the Kaitro News. And the Kaitro News and Stabroek News are not covering African Guyanese events and issues. What is that asking them to agree with us? If they don't agree that it's an apartheid regime, that's their business. But we are half of the population, and it's our taxpayers' money that go to keeping those newspapers alive. They are kept alive through state ads, government ads. And government ads are coming from the government coffers. And as we were discussing last night, African Guyanese cannot escape paying taxes. They work for the government. The government takes out the taxes before they get paid. There are other ethnic groups who are in private businesses. And we know that private businesses in Guyana and all over the world, they dodge taxes. So the people really who are compelled to pay taxes and are paying taxes are African Guyanese. We don't know that the people from the other groups pay their fair share of taxes.
It seems we have a battle of the forces this morning. They say, you know, when you can't get to the parents or so, or when one set of people bother you and you can't get to them, you gotta deal with the others closest to them. I said what appears though Dr. Hinds is taking a beating this morning. Oh boy, I got the answer, you know, Dr. Hinds. I got the answer for you. Let's see. We're not going to be deterred this morning. We're going to target thing. Yeah, man, they are just brutal.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, but
after the program, I'll share a solution with you. I don't think I can do it now because I'll have to give you passports and all of that. So I'll share something with you after the program. Yes, but go ahead.
No, I was finished answering the question.
All right. So as we're talking, we continue to talk about his apartheid Guyana. Today is International Day for People of African Descent. Is there anything in particular, any particular message you want to deliver on this day?
Well, I don't know what you want to ask me. I didn't prepare a message.
All right, then once we observe this International Day of People of African Descent, we continue to see the varying machinations of the PPP to discriminate against African Guyanese. And we are seeing the evidence of this discrimination all the time. Just not so long ago, I received several complaints from people along the coast, especially the ancestral villages of the current Attorney General allegedly making moves to, I would say, misappropriate ancestral lands at the back of these villages. And while that is happening, the government is claiming how much lands they're giving to African Guyanese or house lands. How do you see the claim of the government that they're issuing house lots to African Guyanese, and at the same time they're actually misappropriating African Guyanese ancestral land? How do you react to what I call this contradiction?
Well, the first thing is that land is important anywhere. Land all over the world is always a bone of contention between and among different groups in the society, and between the government and the people. In a country like Guyana, land is extremely important because of the way in which lands have been distributed. We know Amerindians got land from the government at the time of independence. We know that African Guyanese had to buy their land, what we call ancestral land. We know that Indian Guyanese sugar workers were given land in front of their estates after indentureship. And so therefore the manner in which lands were acquired by the various groups has always been a bone of contention. And given the fact that African Guyanese either through pressure or by choice, went in to the public sector and therefore moved away from agriculture. They went into the army to defend the country. They went into the police to protect the country. They went into the teaching professions to teach the country. They went into nursing in order to nurse the country. And as a result of moving towards the public service, they moved away from agriculture. Hence, a lot of what we call the ancestral lands became unused over a period of time. And we know that people from other ethnic groups began to steal, appropriate, lease the lands. In recent times, African Guyanese have become much more conscious of land and the importance of land to development. And so the land issue has become very, very, very important. Now, if the government is giving house lots to people to build houses, nothing is wrong with that. In fact, that's a good thing, because the populations of the villages have increased and there is need for more house lots, more land of house lots. House lots are meant to build houses. The land is not given as a form of capital. So there's a difference between land for housing and land as capital for the accumulation of wealth. So here is the government giving African Guyanese land for housing. So far, so good. But then you are giving the other ethnic groups land for development, business, accumulation of wealth. And that's where the division comes. Because you get your house, you have to pay for it, of course. And I understand that there's a racket going on at the Ministry of Housing where people have to pay enormous sets of money, sums of money, to get priority in getting housing. So, but that's another matter that we have to continue to investigate. So African Guyanese are understandably scrambling to get the land for housing and not paying attention to the fact that others are getting land for business as capital to develop things. Now, if you go back to enslavement, part of the accumulation of wealth of whites was that they didn't have to pay for land. They were given land. They didn't have to pay for labor because they got free labor from the enslaved. And so they were able to accumulate wealth, which has come down generations to now. So when African Guyanese are denied land for the accumulation of wealth, and others are given free land for the accumulation of wealth, all you're doing is widening the wealth gap between and among the various ethnic groups.
And so what's, given the fact that this land is quote-unquote discriminatorily distributed, what should be the attitude of African Guyanese to the ancestral lands, the large swaths of land which exist at back of the villages? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I always learned, and I think it's recorded because I'm sure I read it, that not only did African Guyanese buy the villages, But because of the developmental trust of these villages, Buxton, for example, was designated a premier village because of its progressiveness, if I call it that. The Crown also awarded what I would call extension of the villages of back, what we usually call Crown Dams, to the villages. So while there is documents saying that, look, these communities were bought, they were pieces of lands, plots of lands at the back of the villages, which were awarded to them, I would say, for further extension of cultivation, etc. And so those lands remain at the back there. I understand it is now the apparent mission of the Attorney General to claim these lands as state lands. What should be the attitude of African Guyanese to such an approach?
Well, what should be the attitude? I explained just now. Then African Guyanese, by design and in the interest of nation building, moved towards other professions. They moved away from agriculture. They were always having a hard time with agriculture in any case, starting with the immediate post-emancipation era, where, you know, their crops were destroyed and lands were flooded and all that kind of stuff. They were not afforded markets, etc. But they kept on farming. But as we move closer towards independence, and the need for a public service, the need for an army, the need for a police, it was our people who were pushed into those things. So we can't be everywhere. We can't be defending the country, teaching the country, nursing the country, policing the country, and be on the land. I mean, sometimes we give black people a hard knock, as if somehow or the other they just stupidly walk away and left the land. Well, you know, if they didn't go and become police and army and soldier and so forth, and teachers, who would have performed those functions? You see? So when you ask what should be the attitude, the logical attitude is that black people should go back to agriculture and use up the land. But that is not going to happen tomorrow, because there is a demand for our people in the public service. And that's the dilemma.
But the demand for, a dilemma indeed, because the demand for public service, our people in the public service, and the response to that demand is seen as one of the things which is responsible for people being left at the bottom of the social ladder. That's number one. Number two, what I'm pointing out is that there is still large amounts of land at the back of African Guyanese villages, which are not occupied by African Guyanese. As a matter of fact, perhaps not occupied by anyone. But this administration, this apartheid government, is now making moves to, I want to say, misappropriate those lands. What should be the attitude of African Guyanese towards, as I would say, defending those lands?
Well, what are you going to defend that you really don't have an interest in? That's the point I'm making. If African Guyanese had uses for the land and they were, you know, doing agriculture on a large scale and so on, then they would see the importance of keeping those lands.
So just as how we talk about retraining and retooling, should African Guyanese not be encouraged to have a new look at the use of this land?
Yes, but that has to be done. That has to be done as part of a larger thrust, a larger national trust. It has to be done as part of a larger vision that, okay, if we're going to revive agriculture in the African Guyanese communities, we have to, first of all, invest a lot of money, inject a lot of money into it. Second, we have to convince African Guyanese that there are opportunities to accumulate wealth, so that when they're making career choices, they will take into consideration agriculture. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, the people who have been for 180 years in the profession, you're not going to go and tell them, go back to the land. You know, you have to convince them. You have to show them how going back to the land will give them more security than they now have as public servants. You have to, if they're going to go to the land, you're steering them away from public service. You have to have a plan to fill those public service jobs with other ethnic groups.
No, but that's not our responsibility. We are not responsible for...
The point is that it has time overdevelopment. We were moved away from the land as part of a certain vision, certain developmental thrust. We were doing nation building. We needed an army, we needed police. And all people were encouraged to go into those things. All right? And so if you're going to steer people away from those things into another profession, it has to be part of a larger thrust. Nobody gets up one morning, or a group doesn't get up one morning and say, we're going to leave the public service and go to agriculture. All the government has to do is to then move the focus away from agriculture to something else. And you go into agriculture and you're left with a body in your hand because the government moves its thrust away from agriculture to something else where its people are. And you know, so it's not an easy thing for the group. I mean, individuals, and some individuals are already going back to farming, and they are encountering all kinds of woes in the going back to farming because the government, this government is not interested in encouraging agriculture among African Guyanese. It encourages agriculture, but among Indian Guyanese, it's support-based. It doesn't encourage it among African Guyanese. Look at what they've done with the rate program since they've come back to office. So it's not as easy to tell you go back to the land. You have to guarantee them that when they go to agriculture, that they can make a living off of it, that, and they can accumulate wealth.
Dr. Hinds,
so far, the experiments like the rate program has not brought the dividends because there are a whole, you yourself were talking the other day about people having to bring produce out from the back dam on bicycle and all those kinds of things. How are you telling people to go into agriculture and they can bring out their plants and on bicycle?
you see, let me say, sometimes usually we don't put heads off, my son.
Well, no, it's not putting head. But if you ask me a question,
yes. Well, I let me bring some clarity, if I can call it that, to this discussion, because sometimes we treat these things as exclusive. It is either you're a public servant or you're a farmer. You can't be a public servant and a farmer together, number one. Or it is either you are the owner of a house lot or the owner of farmlands. I am basically saying that, listen, the other aspect you're saying, listen, the government, as divisive and wicked as they are, is not encouraging or interested in encouraging agriculture among African Guyanese. That I am saying, or I'm thinking, I haven't said it aloud, but I think I'm saying it now, that listen, perhaps the onus is on African Guyanese leaders to say to African Guyanese, listen, you can be in the public service, and you can also have land cultivation. Or the lands at the back of your communities, ancestral lands, while you're waiting on 50 by 100 allocation for a house lot from this government, you could actually be occupying acres of land at the back of your village, both as your homestead and your farm. Right?
I don't disagree with you, Kidaki. I'm just saying the pudding is in the doing. Haven't we been doing that over the years? What are the dividends? I'm saying, look at the last government invested in those projects in Ithaca, Buxton, Triumph, and
Mocha.
Arcadia. They've tried. But look at the people who have been away from agriculture for so long. Don't suddenly go back. And so it takes time to what they call diversify out of something into another thing. I think the research has shown that it takes 20 years.
Something even argue.
I'm not disagreeing with you in theory. But what I'm saying, unless you have because we are still a government-driven economy, until the government decides that it's going to invest in that, so that people will know that I am leaving one profession to go into something else. I need people who look for security, and that security has to be guaranteed. When I farm, I'm going to be able to get market for my product and so forth. You have to guarantee people that. You just don't tell them go to farming. We don't have a big private sector that is going to say, look, we need so many 100 tons of, guava, or so many 100 tons of this, and so on. We don't have a big and thriving private sector that is going to demand fruits and other products. And based on that demand, you will get a supply. People know that they can go into farming because you have these big companies that are into manufacturing and so forth. And there is a demand for things. It's more than just telling people. People look for security. People will tell you, I'm in the public service. I am guaranteed a pension. You are telling me now to go into farming. Where is my security? And it is the government that has to provide that security, or the private sector has to be able to demand, as I say, agricultural products so that people can go there and know that there is a market. Ultimately, you have to have markets.
I hear you. I understand. I respect your teaching. One of the things which I have been asking and not asking, maybe not clear enough, is what happens in the meantime? What happens? All right, you're secured in the public service. You expect a pension, etc. You're waiting on a 50 by 100 allocation, but you have acres of lands at the back of your communities, which is very government that you are waiting on, which is discriminatory in the distribution of these 50 by 100 plots, is making moves to misappropriate. Again, I'm using the word misappropriate. And most likely will eventually give it out to other people, either by 50 by 100 plots or large acreage. What happens in the meantime? Should these villages sit back and allow these lands to be misappropriated? Or should people in these very communities who are waiting for these 50 by 100 allocations just occupy the land and have a confrontation with the government if it comes to that?
Yes, and your question is, you are making a proposal.
Well, actually, I asked if they should. It's a question. Should they or should they not?
They would if they see that it would be beneficial. That's the point I am making. It's one thing for those of us who are leaders or thinkers or whatever we call ourselves to make these things. Is whether people feel that this is going to take them one step forward. People, you see, we have to have faith in our people. We cannot always believe that we can preach to our people and they will jump because we preach to them. They have to be convinced. They have to be convinced that this is in their interest. And the people who are living paycheck to paycheck, day to day, they're talking not about long-term interest, they're talking about immediate interest. And I'm saying that these things that we are talking about here are certainly not near term. They're at the minimum medium term. And that is why I'm saying it takes a government thrust. Let's go back to our proposal of the cash grant. If people get disposable income, you can then go to a man or a woman who's getting that $5 million or $1 million, we said, no? Money, cash grant. They can always say, okay, this cash grant I'm getting from the government is going to hold me over while I do what Kidaki says is good to do. What Kidaki says makes sense. But I am getting this cash grant. And this cash grant is going to be in lieu of the salary that I would normally get. And so I can then decide that I'm going to leave the public service and I'm going to go back to the village and I'm going to engage in agriculture. I'm saying, let's look at the thing holistically and let's put ourselves in the shoe of the teacher, of the government worker, and ask, how would they think about this proposition? And not always about how we think.
But guys, forgive me if I'm being what some people say big-headed, but I'm of the firm belief. Like I'm saying, these things can be looked at as exclusive. Teachers and public servants can also be landowners. And I'm saying that those lands at the back, let me say it for myself. I don't want Dr. Hinds to say it. I don't want anybody else to say it. I am saying to all African Guyanese who live in villages like Nabaklis and Beirut and what we call it, Paradise, Dazel Housing Scheme, and Victoria Nabaklis. All of those lands.
Paradise not get back down. Since I live by you here, though. Paradise not get back down.
And therefore, I will raise an issue with you in relation to Paradise not having back down. All those people who live in those communities with lands at the back of the villages, and you're waiting on allocations from the government that you ain't getting, and you know for a fact that the Attorney General and other representatives of this government are coming to infiltrate and appropriate those lands to other people, you're going to occupy them.
Well, Kidaki, you're calling on people to squat, and you don't have to teach Guyanese how to squat.
Go and occupy them.
Guyanese been squatting since Noah was in short pants.
Right.
It doesn't take you or me to tell them to go and squat. All I'm saying is human beings are not robots. If you tell them go and squat, they are going to weigh that against everything. They will take everything into consideration before they take such an action. We notice when this government had just come to power behind where success or somewhere, people were occupying land. You see what the government did? I mean, we have to be realistic when we are making these proposals. We have to be realistic because we are dealing with human beings, not robots. That's all I'm saying, and I'm saying your suggestion is a crazy suggestion. I'm just saying that sometimes these things need a little bit more strategic thinking through against the backdrop of everything that is before us. If it were as easy as that, people would have been doing it, Kidaki. People squatted, always squatted. The last big squatting that was called for in 1973, when Astrea and IPRA called on African Guyanese to occupy unused estate lands. And people did it and Burnham sent in the army. I mean, you want us to sometimes be guided by history so that we don't think when we are making proposals, we are making something that is brand new, that people have not done and experienced.
You see, that is why I took the opportunity to ask you about this land issue. Because you're older and you're wiser, you have the benefit of history. And here it is, you're saying that the last time persons were asked to go and squat on a large scale. Burnham sent in the army, right? What was the end result after Burnham sent in the army? I would like to know.
It crushed it. It was called the Land for the Landless movement.
Did people succeed in getting lands?
He crushed it.
And some people did not succeed in getting lands.
The state sent in the army.
But did the state change its policy thereafter? That's what I want to know.
Kilaki, Askray, and Ipra asked people to go and occupy the unused lands. There was a standoff for a few weeks. The government was asking people not to on the land and so on, and it was a standoff. In the end, the government moved in for the people of the land and appropriated the land.
Dr. Hinds, sometimes I know viewers gonna knock me for saying this. Sometimes I just behave a little dunce. My question is, the government moved in.
I'm not responding to you as a dunce.
No, hear me.
If you behave like a dunce.
Hear me.
No, I think the point is made, Kidaki.
No, the point is not. I am trying to understand, Dr. Hinds. Hear me. Dr. Hinds, allow me no man. Dr. Hinds.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
You're making the point, right, that Burnham government moved in and crushed the movement. My question is, did the government's policy toward land allocation change thereafter? Was it easier for people to get lands? Because I am saying...
I understand what you mean by change. I mean, the Burnham government had its own housing policy. Places like Melanie and South Georgetown and so on, it provided lands in those places and housing for people. That was its policy. Its policy wasn't for people to occupy unused estate lands.
So people got land after.
Huh?
You see what I mean?
I'm not following.
I recognize that. I recognize that. I am trying to clarify for myself. I'm trying to clarify for myself, or say to people, or help people to understand. Now, the big impression we get is that Burnham government moved in, crushed this movement, and that was it. Right? That was it. If I say to people, or if, as I am understanding it, when this mass squatting took place under the Burnham government, all the government did was come in and crush the movement and continue to do what they were doing. Then there's no incentive, quite frankly, for people to do it now, because all they can expect from this current administration is the same behavior, right? But I am thinking that people's action and people's behavior actually force governments to change their policies, and therefore I am advising, listen, you're going to take up all these lands at the back of your village because they're ancestral lands to begin with. If the government wants access to them, then the government must come to the table and let us negotiate how we move forward. So I'm asking the question, if the Burnham policy change in terms of negotiating with the people, how do we move forward? Is there a clear plan laid out as to how you are going to access these lands?
As I said, the Burnham government had its own housing policy, as we can see with the housing schemes that it created. Did people stop squatting? No, people continue to squat. But as we have noticed, when the PPP came back to power in 1992, it moved against the squatters. The PNC government tolerated squatting after then on a small scale. We know that, like on the embankment there in Georgetown, the Lamar embankment, people squatted there for years. The PNC turned a blind eye to it. And when the new government came in, it really, carried blows to squatters. So it is not like people stop squatting. People continue to squat. But, different governments have different attitudes to squatting, and they have different attitude as to who squats. Now, the point that you are raising, in my view, it's not going to be settled by people squat. it would be settled by people organizing themselves in their communities and fighting legally and otherwise to get their lands back. And that has happened. Dr. Rupnarayan, for example, was instrumental in getting back lands for people in West Coast Berbice whose lands were misappropriated. So there are ways and means of getting your land back. That's one. But there's a second issue. As happened in West Berbice, they got back the land, but they didn't have the ways and means to work the land. And they end up leasing the land back again. And so we have to look at all these experiences. Yes, if the state is moving to appropriate your land, then as a community, you fight to hold on to your land, right? That's one. But having retained your land, do you have the capacity to work the land?
Capacity matters my land.
In other parts of the country, people did not have the wherewithal, they did not have capital, etc., etc. And they just leased the land out for the people again.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
I am not telling you not to be idealistic.
No.
I'm just saying idealism has to be tempered by practicality.
My thing is, and I'm saying it again. As I said, look into the camera and saying it. Our people must first hold on to the land. They must protect the land. I don't care about productive capacity just yet. It's your land, it's back of your community, you have first claim to it, hold on to it. We will talk about productive capacity thereafter. But if you don't have it, you can't talk about producing on it. And that is important in my mind. Don't allow the likes of Allen or anybody.
It's also important when you're telling people to hold on something, they have to see the value in that thing.
Sometimes it is us.
In circles.
No, sometimes it is us, sir. It is us who have to teach them the value of that thing.
All I'm saying is that you are ignoring very important elements of the argument that you're making. You're thinking that you can take a certain course of action in a vacuum. And I'm arguing, yes.
When you've been a corrupt in a bill every morning. Now because your money done, you come with conniving morning. When you had your pocket full in a bill every morning. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me morning. Yes, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I don't want you conniving morning. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me work for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
Kissed by the warm breezes of the
The Joint Opposition APNU AFC and the WPA invite you to come rally against the high cost of living, corruption, extrajudicial killings, and rally for a clean voters list. On Saturday, the 3rd of September, at the Golden Grove Market Street from 4:30 p.m. Speakers include Opposition Leader Aubrey C. Norton, Leader of the AFC, Kemraj Ramjatan, Vince Roy Jordan, Kati Hughes, Reyes Rupnarine, Kadaki Amsterdam, Robin Simon, and Shaniqua Haynes. After 2 years, Guyana is at its lowest. It's time to mobilize. It's time for boots on the ground. Saturday, September 3rd, at the Golden Grove Market Street, East Coast, Demerara, from 4:30 p.m.
Kissed by the warm breezes of the Caribbean, this orange beauty has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, large modern kitchen, and a living room with an open concept. This lovely home is within walking distance to the sea, where you can take a dip in the salt waters and feel refreshed. Verone's cheerful country manor, located at Tushin, West Coast, Demerara. Bookings are available on Airbnb. Contact Veronica at 516-524-1559 for more details. We hope to see you soon.
Never Joe, never Joe, never Joe. Oh, money, never, money, never, money, money, never, money, money, I know what you can have in money. Money, never, money, never, money, money, never, money, money, you can keep, you can have in money. When you've been knocked for a bum, and I've been tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, and I've been tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, now I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph.
Morning, neighbor, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, are you morning? Tell all them trenchy. All them rank mouth trenchy. You come here early morning. This early God-given Thursday morning, the 1st of September, to aggravate my spirit. That they don't see white mouth and they don't even know white mouth. Ulado, roti dampal. Y'all see black pudding and don't even know black pudding. Yeah. Anyways, good morning, y'all. Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. It is 20 minutes past the 7 o'clock hour and it's the 1st of September. Yeah. 1st of September, school reopens Monday. I would think, yes, school reopens Monday. As far as I know, school reopens Monday. That's the 5th of September. But Sitara Gyal say you can't get National Grade 6 results before the 15th. Have you ever heard that before? Have you ever heard that before, except under this nasty, stinking, dirty, incompetent cabal? I've never heard. As a child growing up, from the days of common entrance, right into grade 6 examination and whatever they want to call it, I never really heard of the common entrance or national grade 6 examination results coming out after the opening date of school. It is usually before the opening date of school. Because when the results come out before the opening date of school and children know their results and so on, then parents get the opportunity to buy their uniforms and have them ready for the first day of school. All them picnic bright and shining. It's sort of seam cutting breeze. And their colors are bright. And they're in that wonderful spirit of returning to school. But under this little dunce gal and this criminal cabal that is practicing apartheid in this country, there's a results coming out 2 weeks. Imagine that. Results will be available 2 weeks after school reopens. I don't know how much sense that makes, but I guess when you can't beat them, you got to join them. So the $30,000 that they give people for some school voucher or whatever they call it, parents are expected to hold on to those vouchers while prices rise and wait until 2 weeks thereafter, after school opens, that is, for results. And then there will be a mad rush in Georgetown for secondary school uniforms. And the prices will rise again. So y'all make it make sense to me. Make it make sense. That $30,000 what the likes of Zacchaeus and others singing praises to the high heavens about make it make sense. Because I know it can't. Listen, sometimes 2/3 of that $30,000 is what I spend on footwear for my daughter. So I don't know how y'all gonna make it make sense, but I wish y'all luck with that. Share the life. It is Thursday. Some people say it's Thankful Thursdays. So let's be thankful for another day. Hope you had a progressive day yesterday. Hope it was productive. Hope you made some money, you know. I like to talk about money. I tell people I don't like money. But I love what money can do. Right? They say the love of money is the root of all evil. I don't like money. I don't love money. But I love what it can do. If you have money, as the ladies would say, it is better to cry in a BMW than on a bicycle. Right? It is better to cry in a Beamer than on a bicycle. Yeah, when you have money, it empowers you, you know. Money is an empowering tool. It empowers you to shut up people. I want to talk about me and I got money, I got into the courts, I got swear you. Defamation of character. Libel. Slander. Y'all gonna get sued. I got money and y'all want to investigate me, I gonna bribe y'all. Because y'all want QS5 Audi, I gonna bribe y'all. I want yes. So I love what money can do. Some people use it for good. Some people use it for bad. Right? So y'all don't take stress with my love of what money can do. Share the life, man. I'm waiting for y'all to share the life, you know. This morning we're talking more about apartheid Guyana and the RSS. And that $200 million lawsuit. And the fact that up until now we don't know who the real killers of the Henry boys are. And up until now Ruplal is still walking free. I understand a couple of them left the country, you know. Y'all don't know who's Ruplal? Okay, Ruplal is that policeman who was supposed to be under deep cover. Or who was supposed to be under deep cover when he led the hit squad that killed Ronald. Where am I going with that? Quindon Bacchus. Right? Don't forget that. We shall not forget. Don't forget Waddle. And don't forget Crummy Wing. And don't forget Quindon Bacchus. And don't forget all those who died at the hands, murdered, under the watch of this wicked and vindictive PPP government cabal, mafia. Don't forget that. So share the life. I'm taking it slow this morning. It's not Free Talk Friday yet, but sometimes you can't hold it in. You just gotta open your mouth. By the way, y'all see Two-Face since the last time he was on this program? Oh, y'all don't know who is Two-Face? Harry Gill. Harry Gill, man. Yeah, Two-Face Harry Gill. Y'all see him? Them children still looking out for a little maintenance, Harry Gill. Have you been paying alimony? Some people got the temerity, you know? Some people got the temerity to come here and tell people a lot of nonsense. Criticize black folks. And if you were to look at the criticisms that they threw upon us and use that as the attributes of being black, some of them blacker than us. Abigail, where there, bye? I got your dirty business. Hola, I want to take time out to say morning, doctor. Bye. Let us say nothing right now. I understand there's a certain doctor at the Georgetown Hospital who has superseded others recently. I'm making a joke, no? I'm going to learn about this thing. Yes, there's a certain doctor who superseded others. And why? And how? Y'all going to learn about these dark deals. Yeah. Y'all calling people eunuch? And they were there sowing the royal oats? Yeah. Who is this now? Where I want? Don't call me phone so early, man. Anyhow, y'all didn't share the life. I'm going to work with this $500 million. They hoping for $1 billion this morning, but we're going to work with this $500 million. There's some things I want to address this morning. And there are things that we have to consistently talk about. Because they say constant banging destroyed Pearl Harbor. Or some people, we cannot afford to stay quiet on the GCOM issues. Claudette Singh must go, Claudette Singh must go. There's no question that Claudette Singh must go. I noticed last week the Old Smoky, and I keep telling you, when I speak about Old Smoky, I'm not talking about that chimney on Princess Street. I'm talking about the so-called Guyanese Canadian or Canadian Guyanese who is now perhaps a fossil in the parliament of this country. What y'all say? Somebody say Gail Teixeira. Oh yeah, Gail Teixeira talking about. The Minister of Misgovernance. Came out and said that the police must investigate utterances by Aubrey Norton in a call for for Claudette Singh to go. They see it as harassment, they see it as bullyism and so on. Well, perhaps the police will have to investigate me because I believe that Claudette Singh should go. Claudette Singh, as they say, is operating on borrowed time. There can be no credible elections under Claudette Singh. Because Claudette Singh is no longer an impartial chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. Claudette Singh is a rank PPP stooge. Check for the last year or two, and you will see every decision made at GCOM after the PPP was installed in office. Claudette Singh voted with the so-called PPP commissioners the majority of the times. And every proposal made by the so-called opposition commissioners to improve on the delivery of elections at GCOM, Claudette Singh has not supported. And so if you have someone who is supposed to be impartial, who is not supposed to take sides, always voting with one side and against another, then you know for a fact that that individual doesn't suit the position which they hold. For the simple fact that it is statistically impossible for one group of people to always propose solutions that are workable, and another group to always propose solutions that are not workable. Take for example, we have this list conundrum. We got this matter of the list being bloated. And Claudette Singh saying that because of the rulings of Roxanne George, or let me say allegedly say because it's my interpretation, the rulings of Roxanne George makes it impossible for the Guyana Elections Commission to remove the name of dead and absent voters from the voters list on their own. There are certain processes which might allow for that to happen. And what are these processes? It's like forcing a camel through the eye of a needle. First and foremost, during the claims and objection period, you can object to dead and absent voters on the electoral roll. But the onus is on you, the objector, to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt by presenting the necessary documentation to show that this person is either dead or absent. Now, naturally, I explained this some time ago, naturally, in the PPP strongholds, where the intention is to keep dead voters on the list, do you expect anyone to go and object? Anyone who has access to the information? Anyone who knows the families? Do you expect anyone to go and object? In Indian communities predominantly, especially among Muslims, if you're dead today, you're buried tomorrow. So some people are not even conscious that certain people have died. It takes a while to know, hey, you remember the Muslim man who used to come here and buy beef? Long I see by we there. Oh, the man dead and buried by. But even in cases where deaths are announced on national television and so on, who is keeping track of that? Who's keeping track of that? And even when you're aware that someone has died and you want to object to get them off the list, are you a relative? Do you have access to the death certificate to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that this person is dead when you're making the objection? So what they're basically saying is that we're asking you to force a camel through the eye of a needle. Because if you're going to be the one objecting to the presence of a dead person on the list, you have to provide his information. It's near impossible to get him off. The other method is the GRO, the General Registrar's Office. That is where Cummings was, where I understand Boodoo is, and whoever else they have in there, doing their nastiness. It's supposed to send a monthly report to GCOM. These are all the births we have recorded for the month. These are all the deaths we have recorded for the month. Right? GCOM will now look at the list of deaths and update their database to say that all of these are dead. So automatically they will come off of the database, the voters list. GRO doesn't do that. Because we know in this country there's no efficiency in the state departments. Right? There's no efficiency. Especially when you don't intend for the systems to work. You will be inefficient. And so how then do you get people off of the voters list? Claims and objections is a waste of time. It can't achieve what is intended. Not efficient. Waiting for the reports from GRO is just as inefficient. So how do you get people off of the list? Coalition commissioners proposed, if you are going to use the lists as they are, the surest way to prevent double voting is to use biometrics. So when a voter turns up, let's assume it's a left thumbprint that you capture and put in the system. He or she uses the left thumbprint to verify that it is the bona fide voter. And so that person votes and goes along their way. And nobody else can come to pretend to be that person because the biometrics will not match. So you guarantee them one man, one vote. My understanding is that Claudette Singh has voted against it. The PPP has voted against it. So if you're telling me that you have an interest in free, fair, and credible elections, and you're resisting changes which will guarantee that, what really are you saying? Your actions are speaking louder than your words. And some Guyanese were to sit back and relax and wait for Claudette Singh to lead at GCOM impartially and work diligently to get a clean voters list and a credible election. It will not happen. Not if you leave her to our own doings. Citizens have to demand, and note I say citizens have to demand that which is necessary to guarantee a free, fair, and credible election. What is necessary? A foolproof system to prevent double voting, imposter voting, right? A foolproof system. It is either you get a clean voters list or you get the biometrics. Now, for both biometrics and a clean vote, for both biometrics and a clean voters list, it would appear as though an amendment to ROPA would be necessary. And so Guyanese have to take to the streets and demand that ROPA be amended. Anil Mandela has an interest in amending ROPA. but not for the purposes of a clean voters list or free, fair, and credible elections. Their interest in amending rope is to gerrymander boundaries and so on. They want to divide Region 4 into 4 or 3 or 2 districts, whatever, so that they can gerrymander, they can shift the boundaries to give them advantage. They have an interest in doing that. Many will argue that you can't stop them from doing it. They have the parliamentary majority. I am saying, well, if you can't beat them, join them. If you're going to amend Roper to have your way, you must amend Roper to have, for Guyanese citizens to have their way. And Guyanese citizens have to demand that Roper be amended to bring into legality the use of biometrics to prevent double voting and imposter voting and so on. Alternatively, they have to demand that Roper be amended to provide a way of removing dead and absent voters from the voters list. That's our responsibility. Yeah. Don't tell us the leader of the opposition and the lawyers of the opposition and so on. Yes, they have a responsibility to champion the cause in the National Assembly and so on. We have a responsibility to take to the streets so that the cause even gets looked at. I don't understand this up until now. Everybody's behind social media. Everybody has a solution, but nobody is taking to the streets to demand that the solution be implemented. I'm reminding you of the importance of that. We are not going to get the changes that are necessary to give us free, fair, and credible elections unless we take to the streets. It's my firm belief. And if we don't take to the streets, it follows that we're not likely to get the changes. And so we will be stuck with a government that is bent on creating an apartheid Guyana. It's a simple fact. How do you know you are in an apartheid Guyana? It's about separateness. It is about separate treatment or different treatment. I have an Indian acquaintance. Every time she passes, we would stop and gaff and so on. And we'll talk about issues. Yesterday she was saying to me, you know what? Like them other side lying down. She said every time I pass, I see another road done in an Indian community. This is an Indian Guyanese saying it. But because Sideline Dam services Buxton, it is not being done, but it is affecting me. This is what she is saying. It is affecting me. And so I must talk about it. Separateness. Ramesh Prasad, I think his name is, was telling me that there's streets in Annandale to be done. Well, Ramesh Prasad, news break. I recognize that your streets in Annandale are being done. Did you recognize that? Did you recognize that? And so that's a good example. I like to use the road examples because what? It's visible. It's right up in your face. They can't run from it. They're watching you. I heard a caller on Mosley's show this morning complaining that they did Buxton sideline south of the railway line. Well, that road was being done since I was a boy. Finally, it looks as though it's finished. But those of you who are listening to Mosley's program will tell you that the caller was complaining first about the width of the road, and secondly about the quality of the road. No two vehicles can use the road at the same time. No two vehicles can use the road at the same time. That's number one. Number two, the thickness, the elevation of the road, if you want to call it that, is similar to that of the parapet. What does that say to you? If you go, for example, the road I show you in Cove and John, servicing two families, or two houses, I don't know. Like I witnessed in industry yesterday. Yeah, I am doing road tourism. Right? In industry, it's listen, the road in industry that is being done, I really didn't have the time or, let's say, the presence of mind to take out my camera and video it. You should see the preparation. The excavation. At least 1 foot down I would average, if not 2. But the excavation, nicely done. It neat. The road shoulders are present. It's sort of sturdy looking. And so when they start to do the necessary filling for that street, you know that it will be laid on a proper foundation and so long lasting. But compare it to the one that people are complaining about already. Buxton sideline south of the railway line. If I heard a caller clearly this morning, I think it was completed, or it looked completed 2 Sundays ago. The edges are already being destroyed. Broken. Why? Wafer thin, man. Wafer thin. So you know that you're in an apartheid state when these differences are obtained across the country in terms of national development. When monies are given to PPP control NDCs to take care of the environment in those neighborhoods, and none is given the APNU AFC controlled NDCs, despite all the projects that they propose. You know that you are in an apartheid Guyana. You're seeing it. When hundreds of acres of land for mining, gold mining and timber harvesting and sand mining and stuff like that are given out to one set of people, and others are getting hell. They get even a fraction of that when they apply. You know that you are in an apartheid Guyana. And so if you are not prepared to get up and defend the vote, if you're not prepared to get up and defend credible elections, then you're simply going to be stuck with this kind of government. Right? And this is not a call that is being made from Aubrey Norton or the APNU or African Guyanese because they don't like an Indian Guyanese government. This is a call that is being made by all of the international agencies that had a part to play in witnessing the local elections the last local elections. Every single one of them said, at the minimum, there needs to be a sanitized voters list. So when Harry Norton and the coalition supporters and African Guyanese say we need a clean voters list, we are not to be treated like a voice in the wilderness. There are other people. Many will say independent observers, because that's what they call them, who recognize the need for this very thing which we are calling for. And therefore, why are we sitting back? Why are we sitting on our laurels and not really championing the cause? Why are we? Y'all talk to me. Guyanese need to sound their voices. Let's use some hashtag. New voters list. Nothing less. Claudette Singh must go. Nothing less. Free, fair, and credible elections. Nothing less. Those must be our demands. And we must stick to our guns. We must stick to our guns. How else will we get change? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Clay Forbes is asking if fraud put them in office, why would they want to dismantle the infrastructure that allowed them to get into office? They wouldn't want to. But the citizens must make them. That's my position. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So Guyanese, the responsibility is ours. Everybody is saying, what is the leader of the opposition doing? What are opposition parliamentarians are doing? They have their roles. But like I keep saying, if the masses show no interest in making this call and sticking to the guns and demanding, then the political leaders are useless. A Jamaican artist say, I always refer to it, it sounds lewd. If men a shit, them can't yam. It says way of saying that if I don't play my part, there's no benefit for them. Right? If we don't play our part, there really is no usefulness for these political leaders. There are no need for them. We have to play our part. It is only then that they make sense. Right? Keep that in mind. Citizens have a responsibility. Iran, Sri Lanka, recent protests. Anyway, no politicians to start it. Right? No politician did they wait on to start it. Who's calling and why? It's not time for this call, but let's see. Caller, the lines are not opened as yet. Is it urgent?
Oh, no. I thought it's the regular line. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. They didn't wait on politicians. They got up. They did what they had to do. And the politicians joined them, and eventually perhaps we'll get a benefit out of it. So what are you waiting for? We are waiting for. Rex always saying that there was an announcement to update your claims and objections by September 11th, coming from GCOM. How many citizens have paid attention to the claims and objection period? Have you heard any wide-reaching announcements, advertisements, saying that the claims and objections period has started? Quite frankly, I might now be hearing of this 11th of September deadline. So they are operating with stealth. Right? This thing is now a secret. Minimum advertisement so people could take minimal action. How about that? Rexola is saying, Rexola busy this morning. He passed just a fire. I wonder if it's a he or she. Passed just a fire. 1 minute. Hey. Good. Yes. I noticed that Sapphire roads are in a muck. At least that's my interpretation. Yes, Rex, I went through Sapphire too. And as I drove through Sapphire, I was asking myself, wasn't Sapphire supposed to be the beneficiary of what they call the Ring Road Network? Y'all remember that? Under the coalition, there was big plan. There was a big plan. Money identified and everything to do a road network in Sapphire. I think they refer to it as a ring road. My assumption is that it was going, all the roads are going to be linked into in some, I don't know, circuitous way or something. But Ring Road, I think it was called. That died a sudden death. And the roads in Sapphire are, Jano, I don't know how to describe them anymore. But they're they're in extremely poor condition. The one word I always turn to is impossible. I remember as a postal apprentice, when it rains and you can't go through the street, you were supposed to write on the mail envelope, impossible road. And I'm saying it so that some people understand that I'm not talking about impossible. Impossible means you can't pass. Right? Many of my colleagues back then used to write impossible road. Impossible road. Right? So there's a difference, there's a thin line. And if you're a trenchy, you ain't gonna understand. Right? You might leave here and say, you can't talk. Impossible road. A lot of the roads are impossible. Can't pass them. Good? And so, again, that's a good example of the apartheid under which we live. The PPP has never won Sapphire in a national or regional election, general or regional election, whichever. Never won it. As a matter of fact, they came to a lot of blows in Sapphire. And so maybe it's payback time for the Sophians. Right? Maybe it's payback time. We're not going to do your roads. We don't care how much they break up your vehicles. We don't care how much they prevent supplies from coming into your communities and cost you more money. Right? Yes, Tanisha King, they had FARE, elections in 2020, FARE. I know some of y'all done man. Right? Tanisha King, choose from these 3 words and complete your sentence to make sense. FEAR, FAIR, FARE. Choose from them. Which one are you talking about? Trenchy, you dunce. When you dunce in the sea, expose yourself this morning. Right? And so I am saying these are the things we have to pay attention to. Otherwise, we will be stuck with this apartheid government. And if you think that it is bad now, you allow the PPP to win the next election in this country. Allow the PPP to win the next election in this country. Give them the impression that they are now entrenched. They are sitting comfortably in government. You allow them to get that impression. And then a lot of the elements of the apartheid state that have not been visited upon you as yet, you're going to start to experience. Right? We already got ministers being outside, drunk and disorderly, driving away from police roadblock and so on. And police hierarchy calling lower ranks to say, let it be. You've known of that before. But if you think that there's anything, allow them to win another election. And those will be small potatoes compared to what will be happening. I said it before and I'm saying it again. They're going to come and collect your daughters. They're going to come and collect your children. They will even collect you as they see fit. You hear, so far you're hearing of disappearing policemen, disappearing civilians, right? In the apartheid state, they come and they collect you in broad daylight. And nobody can account for you. Don't be surprised. Y'all remember they had a certain REO in Region 9 who shot the people's daughter because she refused to give him his way? Have you heard of that matter being prosecuted in the courts? Have you heard the end of it? They're not as entrenched as they would like to be. But even their minions are taking advantage of the ordinary rank and file citizens of this country. Give them the opportunity to win another election, and you will see if it will get any better. See if it will get any better. Y'all like to talk about fear. Black people frightened. I frightened to lose my work. I frightened my brother lose his work. I frightened my mother lose his. What can triumph protecting your lives and your liberty? What difference does it make if I have a job at the bottom of the salary scale? I have no freedom. There's no respect for me as against me having no job. What difference does it make? Tell you all already, I'd rather die standing. People have to start looking at it from that point of view. Yeah, I have a job. What I'm earning can't pay my bills. Can't sustain my family. I still have to do demeaning things to get by. So is there really dignity in that kind of labor? Now think about that. Think about that. Get out there. Defend your elections. Demand free, fair, and credible elections. Demand constitutional amendments for the use of biometrics or some other way of clearing the voters list. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. Yeah, I walked out. Yeah, I walked that out. That's all I can say to you this morning. It's now 6 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. I want to talk about what everybody else is talking about. Might not be as important for why people think it is important. But it is important. Azzuddin Mohammed has sued DION BASCOM for $200 million. The lawsuit has been filed. Remember there was a pre-action letter? Yeah. One thing to note thus far is Blanham did not follow up on his suit or his threat to sue. Neither did Mitchell Caesar follow up on his threat to sue. Maybe they have decided not to sue, or maybe they are looking for a new attorney. Because many of us pointed out that it was strikingly strange for these two senior policemen to have the same legal representative as the alleged mastermind, according to DION BASCOM. And so maybe they have gone back to the drawing board and say, hey, this thing makes sense, it looked a little fishy. So let us go seeking other legal minds. Let us look for alternative legal representation. Or simply, let us forget this lawsuit thing, it might bring out too much. So I'm wondering why it is Blanham and Caesar have not followed up on their threat to sue. That's number one. Why? Number two, I understand that Azzuddin has to sue. Because as a Guyanese billionaire on the pages of Forbes magazine, he has an image to protect. And he cannot allow or afford for anyone to tarnish that image. And as some people are saying, he might have presidential aspirations. And so if you aspire to be president, you have an image to protect, both internationally and locally. And so it is absolutely necessary that Azzuddin sue to protect his name. So I understand that. But I await. I don't know lawsuits are heard in this country. Honestly, I've never had the opportunity of going into a court and sitting and listening to a lawsuit being pursued. I don't know if the public gets to follow these things, or these are matters that are heard in chambers and then the public get to know by the way of news, media, that this case was actually heard and this is the outcome. But I personally, I have a lot of interest in hearing when this matter comes up for hearing, the determination of guilt. Or is it guilt they call it, or I don't know. In these private matters, if you call it guilt or responsibility or what, I don't know what you call it. But I would like to hear the arguments in these matters. I would certainly like to hear the arguments. Because I believe they say all is fair in love and war. And a lawsuit of this nature is definitely war. And so I would like to hear what the BASCOM would say or would do to protect himself at all times. I have an interest in that. I also have an interest in why Blanham and Caesar have not continued or followed up on their threats. Maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe they're trying to accumulate the money to pay the lawyer's fee. The other thing is, BASCOM, it was recommended that BASCOM be charged 7 charges. As far as I'm aware, he has not yet been charged. At least I have not heard of him appearing in court. Why? Is it because the police have come to realize that they can be smarter than the DPP? Because under the Whistleblower Act, as I call it loosely, a whistleblower cannot be charged or ought not to be charged until an investigation, a commission of inquiry is held into the allegations and culpability is determined. And so is it that they were advised that, hey, this thing is making sense. Y'all can't charge this man because it's against the law. So are we saying we have an incompetent DPP? Or as some might want to argue, a corrupt corrupt DPP? How can she make such a recommendation knowing that the law says that this man is definitely a whistleblower, and the law says that whistleblowers can be charged or they ought not to be charged? Those are some of the things I'm musing this morning. Right? Let me continue to muse. The RSS is coming, or the RSS is here. At least one representative of the RSS. It would seem as though this assistance requested from the RSS or this assistance being provided by the RSS is a one-man thing. I'm hearing through the grapevine that one man is here representing the RSS. And he was here at the same time. He was here when the RSS was invited to investigate the Henry's murder. And instead of doing the investigative work, he was seen many a times socializing in the company of the very people he is now asked to, well, technically investigate, because the reality is he wasn't asked to, the RSS was not asked to investigate Blanham and Caesar. The RSS, according to the fat guy, I heard somebody referring to the fat guy now as Bam Bam Ali. According to the fat guy, the RSS is here to review. Note, the RSS is here to conduct a review of the Forgenders file. Review the file with all of the statements, evidence, whatever you want to call it, relating to the murder of Paper Shirts. What's his name? Ricardo Fagundes or something like that? They are only here to conduct a review. Now when you do a review, you'll say, well, it's like an audit, if you can call it that. Yeah, we have looked at the file, and so far the police have been on the right track. They have followed the procedures. Whether the results of the procedures are good enough is another thing. And that is all the RSS was called to do. So don't fool yourself and don't hold your breath that you're going to get anything substantial at the end of this assistance being provided by the RSS. Because they are only here to review the file. They might look at statements and see, well, Mark Richmond's name was mentioned, and ask the question, did the police make any contact with Mark Richmond? Were efforts made to arrest Mark Richmond? Was he interviewed? What are the results of those interviews? They might very well be able to do that. But what else? There's no declaration that the RSS will be investigating or inquiring into the allegations made by DION BASCOM against Azuddin Mohammed, against Mitchell Caesar, against Wendell Blanham, etc., etc. The RSS is not coming here to do that. And so, in short, what the fat guy has done is pull a trick on Guyanese. And we, in our usual docile way, sat back and continue to sit back and accept that trick. Right? Remember, I'm just musing. Outside the box. I'm thinking outside the box. So for me, I don't expect any earth-shattering revelations from the RSS when this one-man show is over. And if Guyanese really and truly would like to see the Guyana police force reformed, or these alleged criminal elements in the Guyana police force removed and punished for their alleged crimes, then again, the onus is on us to demand meaningful actions. Not window dressing, meaningful actions. The street has to be our battleground. I don't care what anybody say. The street has to be the battleground for every Guyanese who would like to see, number one, a clean voters list, hiding Guyana police force. Otherwise, we take what we get. And they say people deserve the government they get. Because obviously, if you will do nothing to get the best that there is, then you just deserve what you get. You get paid according to your works. Or some people will put it according another way. Right? According to your works, you shall be paid. 6225933 is the number to call. Lines are now open. Call and let's talk the thing. Call and let's talk the thing. 6225933 is the number to call. Lines are open. All those of you who are anxious to call, it's your time now.
The Joint Opposition APNU-AFC and the WPA invite you to come rally against the high cost of living, corruption, extrajudicial killings, and rally for a clean voters list. On Saturday, the 3rd of September, at the Golden Grove Market Street from 4:30 p.m. Speakers include Opposition Leader Aubrey C. Norton, Leader of the AFC, Kemraj Ramjatan, Vince Roy Jordan, Kati Hughes, Reyes Ruknarain, Kadaki Amsterdam, Robin Simon, and Shaniqua Hay.
Hello?
Call A Live, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. We are paying attention to Pradeep Singh. I will call again for umpteen time to pay attention also with the ruling of Roxanne George. Those two elements in the two areas are the real threat you have there in Guyana. Now, I want Guyanese to look at all the ruling by Roxanne George that could unsettle the government of the day. Look at her ruling, look at the pattern, and look how she comes up with her conclusion or such decision. Guyanese need to pay attention there too. We have an opposition. They wait until the boat reach to the fall or whatsoever you call it, and then they shout out to the rooftop. You know, when it's too late. Gladys Singh supposed to be attacked from since the day that case, from since the day she refused to not to allow those votes that cannot be given accounted for to mix up with the valid vote. And you see what's the outcome today? The PDP went as far now calling for the opposition leader to be investigated. You know, so Guyana is taking too long. The oppositions, they're taking too long to respond to these urgent needs. You know, you gotta look at Roxanne George. Roxanne George is also operating as Gladys Singh, just as Gladys Singh. She only given the oppositions them cases that had no kind of threat to the government of the day. You got to pay attention there. You know, and that's my little take for this morning. You got to pay attention to Roxanne George. She's also, look at her ruling, all her ruling, look at it. And you will see, just the same way as it's consistent, just the same way as Gladys Singh. Lawyers don't want to get down hard on her. That's also a kind of buffering style there in Guyana. You know, I'm not saying that they should behave like civilians, but there are ways that the lawyers operate when judges and magistrates are not operating the way they should. You know, they should be called out. And there's nobody else that will have a more effect on their calls other than the lawyers, them, or people from the judiciary. You know, look at Lonefield and them. A magistrate is sitting there in a case that prosecutor asking over 2 years for time to prove their case. And they're still sitting, and that matter is still sitting there instead of being thrown out. You know, it also baffles my mind to know what the defense lawyers they're doing if there's no other recourse to have the magistrate act accordingly. You know, so that's my take, Mr. Amsterdam. Thank you.
Thank you for your call. The lines remain open, and we remain fed up.
The Joint Opposition APNU-AFC and the WPA invite you to come rally against the high cost of living, corruption, extrajudicial killings, and rally for a clean voters list. On Saturday, the 3rd of September, at the Golden Grove Market Street from 4:30 p.m. Speakers include Opposition Leader Aubrey C. Norton, Leader of the AFC, Kemraj Ramjatan, Vince Roy Jordan, Kati Hughes, Reyes Rupnarain, Kadaki Amsterdam, Robin Simon, and Shaniqua Haynes. After 2 years, Guyana is at its lowest. It's time to mobilize. It's time for boots on the ground. Saturday, September 3rd, at the Golden Grove Market Street, East Coast, Demerara, from 4:30 p.m.
Kadaki, good morning. I want to ask the question. What happened to the opposition parliamentarians or the politicians, all those who was ministers and who had senior and responsible portfolios when they were in government? What happened with the contacts they had internationally that they could use these contacts now to make representation when certain things occur at present that is happening in Guyana? What happened to the politicians who were there in the 3 or the 5 years with the Granger government? What happened to they lose all the contacts, they lose all the essence, that they don't have no sort of connection nowhere. They were so docile that now the outer power, the flat on the face. Come on, I asking a question. Can you enlighten me about it? Or bring it to the forum that where are they? Where are they? Where they doing? They lose all the contact that they can't make no sort of representation to get international help or something for the Guyanese people. Thank you, man.
All right, well, thank you. Yes, listen, let me tell you something. Sometimes I am so real that you can't believe me. Now, you're asking about these former ministers and so on. If you were employed at a certain place, hey, y'all hear ignorant say this morning. If you were employed at a certain place and you lose the job, are you expected to continue to do that job? Yeah, please answer me. If you were employed at a certain place and you lost the job, you've been fired, can you be expected to continue to do that job? A lot of these people were in this ministry and that ministry and minister of this and minister of that were in jobs. They weren't true representatives of the people. I mean, y'all could beat me up when I don't talk, but that's how I feel. That's how I feel. A lot of them weren't true representatives of the people. Let me throw some stones. I hope I don't make enemies. Prior to the coalition winning the election in 2015, any of you heard of Nicolette Henry and the political hustlings, if I can call it that? Was Nicolette Henry a known political activist prior to 2015 election victory? I didn't know of her, I can tell you that. Call me live, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Now you're saying, you're making the point that if you was employed, right? You hear me?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah.
We are listening.
The point that if you're employed, right, and you're being fired if you represent the place no more, or do represent the place, right? That's like making an excuse for them. What about the set that we have presently, who table everything, and the Speaker of the House won't listen in, and still they attend and do stupidness, and they won't do it. If you, who in there can't represent yourself in the House, how could you represent the mass outside? You can't represent yourself in the House, how can you represent the mass outside? Your task is stubbornness, but the opposition wants the majority. If you look at all the other international places, what happened in Parliament? Corruption, chair, self-respect, center. Because we stand for a policy, a good policy that we have to look for the people. Look for the people. So if they have themselves inside, everybody can't help themselves, they can't help nobody, period. We ain't no way to work out. We get represented from the top. Now, you're saying everybody coming out. You want people to come out and stand up, and you stand up for the people. You know what I mean? It's a sacrifice. You know, like I say, if it was a park, then sit down. We wanted there for that. We should see if we get enjoy the ride and enjoy the thing. I was the park. Sit down. The answer is a sacrifice. You got to make figure what you want. Right? And if we for president sacrifice, we wanted to hear for enjoying this here. So, what we doing, this freedom that we get. Yeah, it's a sacrifice. They can't look at your job and so on. You got to think about the future for your generation. But this, at the same time, them in the parliament, they are taking advantage. Everybody else suddenly get break to get talk show. We want talk show. We hearing talk all the time. It's action you want. Get the street. Not violence, but peaceful. Get the street. Everybody don't work. Everybody don't do hit the street. All right, so.
Thank you, caller. Point made and taken. Point bearing thing, you see, I don't know. Sometimes I just get some wicked intentions. Y'all recognize them, right? Yes, the reality is, listen. I mean, I use Nicolette as an example. I personally didn't know of Nicolette as a political activist before 2015. Maybe she was quietly there in the background. I will now pick on Gary Best and Winston Felix. I didn't know that they were political activists, but, right? Let me clarify this. Because of the offices which they held, one was Chief of Staff of the Guyana Defense Force, the other one was Commissioner of Police. It's not likely that you could have known in an open way what their political allegiances were and what they were doing politically for the APNU AFC. So I might be giving them basket to fetch water, but prior to the victory in 2015, I really didn't know of them on the political scenes. Right? We can continue that discussion. Caller live, good morning.
Morning, Kadaki. Nicolette Henry. We went to school together, not even a class party or a boarding party. She was at it. You understand me? She suddenly arrived and became one of the so-called elites or wannabe elites. Remember when they had that strike in that teacher's strike? She went to New Amsterdam, and New Amsterdam people just had to chase her out of the place because she thinks she arrived. You understand me? And there's a lot of them who think that they're elites in this place, but you know, yeah, they can't touch the grass, they can't communicate with the grass. That's a sad thing. That's my take.
Thank you. Claude Warden said I misrepresented the caller. Are you still of that opinion, Claude? Claude, are you still of the opinion that I misrepresented the caller? I understand the caller is asking where these people are. And I answered by pointing out that they are right where they were before. Invisible. Right? That's all I'm saying. Caller live, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Kadaki. Good morning to the viewers, audience. Now, this guy is suing BASCOM for $200 million. BASCOM is a public servant. I want to know where BASCOM can get $200 million. Let me say if he loses the case, where he can get $200 million from. These people just want to waste people's time or something. Huh? $200 million for ordinary public servants you suing. Where this man will get this money from, right? Therefore, if he win this case, that means that he owns BASCOM then. Huh?
Caller.
Yeah.
I like to be the devil's advocate.
Go ahead.
Where's your evidence to support that BASCOM is an ordinary public servant?
Well, at least.
Let me finish now.
Okay, go ahead.
Right? They say, according to Bob Marley, only your friend know your secret, right?
Okay.
Is there anything that suggests that there's some amount of familiarity between or among BASCOM, Azwede Mohammed, Blanum, and Caesar?
Well, I won't be able to see.
No.
I won't be able to see.
You were listening to all the public confrontation and so on. Did you get the impression that all these guys know each other?
They might know each other, right? But I won't be able to say if the guy got $200 million.
No, that's not the point. I am not asking you if the guy has $200 million. I am asking you if it is likely that these people know each other more than we know them.
Yeah.
All right.
It's likely.
So if you friend, as they say, if Patma come from bottom of river and say, who will get teeth, then believe him. So if these boys apparently know each other, and one chose to sue the other for $200 million, maybe you're saying this man is worth more than $200 million. I don't know.
Okay. okay, point taken.
Our concern really and truly, that's on the lighter side, quite frankly. Our concern really and truly shouldn't be how much he is sued for. I ain't concerned how much he is sued for. Right? The fact he is sued.
Okay.
I want to hear what will come out of the lawsuit. But Jack Dion sued Freddie Kessoon. You remember that?
Yeah.
Jack Dion sued Kessoon for referring to him as an ideological racist. Right? And when that case came up for hearing, eventually, I understand the payoff had to happen. Because Jack Dion didn't want what Kessoon had on him to be revealed. So, we can understand these things. And just what you write.
Okay.
Go ahead. Your cause.
It was just my opinion. It was just my opinion that you sue an ordinary public servant now that that the guy, I don't know where you can get the $200 million from. Probably, as you rightly said, that he if they know each other, they might know that he have $200 million or he's worth $200 million, right? Anyhow, moving on. Secondly, is that I haven't seen to these rallies that are being announced that Valda Lawrence is on this rally. You know, I mean, what happened to her? You know, we haven't seen her. I mean, she's supposed to be a crowd puller, like pulling the women, you know, in this country. So I haven't seen her. Is the fire got so cold that, you know, she don't want to be involved in it? We need to see these people. We need to see these people. Because people looking forward for for representative from these people, right? So I'm saying that in future, when they would have organized other rallies, y'all try to get, you know, certain people on board that they could come and encourage the citizens of Guyana who are their supporters. That's my contribution. That's my take this morning. Thank you very much.
As some people would say, like a sending scholar this morning. Listen, this morning I'm just being like that today. I don't take me too personal, right? Pay attention to what I'm giving you, though. Good. I can be, you know, sometimes I can be very, very light-hearted. It doesn't mean that what I'm giving you doesn't have weight. Keep that in mind. I hope that Valda Lawrence herself is tuned into this program. Or if not, I hope James Bond is tuned into this program. Because I wanted to say to the caller, I'm not Valda's publicist. I can't answer for her. But then I remember James Bond has always put himself out there as the son of Valda. Right? Valda is his mother. And so I'm sure he has that close connection, and I hope it still exists. And so maybe in one of his lives he can explain the absence of Valda Lawrence from the political scene. I don't know. Again, I will make another disclaimer. I'm not a member of the PNC, and Valda is PNC. And so I can't comment. With all honesty, I can't really comment as to why Valda might not be on these rallies, because I don't understand the internal workings of the PNC. Right? So the question is put. It has not been answered, at least not from me. Right? And I hope somebody can answer the question. The lines remain open. But I was making a point, you see a lot of people absent, like you callers have been saying. People who held high positions in the last AP and AFC government. For example, when last you heard of Nagamutu? Right? Maybe totally retired from politics, to the extent that not even a letter you see in the media addressing some of the nastiness of the PPP or what is happening in the country politically. Right? The likes of Keith Scott. When last you heard from Keith Scott? But we heard recently that Trotman, what's his name? Trotman resigned from Parliament. Prior to that publication of that resignation story, I actually forgot Trotman existed. Caller Live, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Brother Kadaki. Good morning to all the viewers and listeners. I recognize this morning that one of the topics that I think we might be a little bit facetious by talking, bashing a little bit the opposition politicians, and I hope people don't take that as a license that they need to bash politicians, because we need to keep our eyes on the ball, and keep our eyes on the enemy, and keep the pressure on the enemy, and we know who the enemies are. And I would like to make a statement in regards to the PNC politicians. Historically, PNC has been, like Dr. Hinds succinctly explained it, that it is PNC has been it is an election machinery. So with that, I think they will have some degree of elitism in the party, and we have seen that over the years. So a lot of these people that we might be mentioning, the names that they'll be calling, like Dr. Henry and other people, the guy who was the natural resource minister, Trotman, and a few others. You may not have seen these people in certain circles, because, like I said again, these people are regard themselves as higher ups, and they don't play in the field. So but we can't bash them for that, because that's their style, right? But that doesn't mean that they're not effective. I didn't mention Miss Lawrence. Right? They are effective, because who knows, they might be doing things in the background, but it's just that they're not as upfront as we are. They're not field soldiers. And with this battle, with this fight, we need all sorts of people to be in this fight here. So we can't be looking down at these people and bashing these people and saying things, because these people are working in the background. I don't know that, but I think so. They might be, right? And also, we need to give these people respect them for who they are, because, like I said, they're a little bit. Some of them are a little bit elitist, and that's one of the reasons why sometimes the problems in the PNC party. So let's just support whoever are our leaders, and keep our eyes on the prize that is bringing down this racist government. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Voice note.
Kadaki, that caller, right, should understand that he would never see certain people behind Norton, because a lot of them didn't get the positions they were looking for.
There's an offered explanation from a voice noter.
Mr. Amsterdam, good morning. You know, when I look at what this man, let me just ask a question. I want to know, who is this man, Jagdio, and is Adam? I don't even got to have a
call over the line.
Yes, sir.
A name to describe them. What they think, they could use the government's money as they please, because it belongs to them personally, and anybody else, their accounts must be audited, but them own must not be audited. Which one or which country would accept this madness from Mr. Jagdio? Jagdio is not no honest man. Why he think it is that he should be asking for everything in black organization to be audited, and everything that they do, spending the money like madness, giving it away to the supporters and doing all kind of madness, and nothing mustn't be audited. Look at the Public Accounts Committee. Look how they got it. Because they don't want to be scrutinized. And nobody can say nothing, but then they come in demanding that the African and Guyanese organization must think, because those people want them to scrutinize them. Because this thing somebody gotta stand up and face them and let them know that y'all don't want y'all thing at it is the government money, we own it at it too. Thank you.
Thank you for holding call of your life.
Morning, Kadaki, and morning, Guyana. You raised a lot of questions in reference to what is it that the Guyanese people will do. And your answer is there every day. Our Guyanese folks are not doing absolutely nothing. And I guess our understanding is that they're scared because no one have any sustained attack in reference to this racist Coli government. So here is it that Vincent Alexander is being slandered by Jack DeHo, and they're being asked to produce all of this stuff, which they do have. Right? And then you have other Africans who are chiming in and saying they never heard of APARTHEID and all this type of stuff. That just goes to show that we simply always we're biting the bait all the time. And it looks bad that we got to now produce all of this other rest of stuff. You know? So here's it, they're thieving money left and right. The Coli people in Guyana don't have no answer for them, but then they want to come and audit us. And luckily for Alexander and APARTHEID, they've got their record straight. And he had stressed that they've investigated and have a report for 4 months and have not said any damn thing. But that just goes to show they're simply trying to, drive a wedge in the African community. And why have no one brought private criminal charges against Claudette Singh? I mean, we've been asking it for 2 years. But yet still, nothing is done from anyone, lawyers or what. So is there a fraternity, just like they have this blue line between cops? So is there a line between lawyers? That's my question. Claudette Singh got to go by any means necessary. But it's up to the Guyanese people to voice their displeasure. So since they're not voicing their displeasure, I guess we got to think, hell, they agree with it. And they're okay with what's going on. And that's my take.
Caller.
Yes.
I refer you to, well, this looks like Guyana Standard. Yeah, I didn't expect to be brought to Guyana Standard. Right? But if you go, it was July 29th, 2020. Guyana Standard reported that 3 private charges were filed against Claudette Singh. 3 private criminal charges filed against Claudette Singh. And I went immediately and searched for this thing because I remember those charges were filed. And what do you think happened to them?
I guess they were dismissed by the DPP.
Exactly. Have a good day.
Okay.
Have a good day. Yeah, so there's an infrastructure, if I can call it there, that man. Sometimes I'm lost for words. But the system is set up for a certain set of people to dominate another set. Right? And we have not been paying attention to it, or we have not been looking into it deep enough prior to now. But when some of us decided to really examine it, we arrive at a point, you know what? This is apartheid. This is apartheid. But you are still in doubt? Call it live, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Kadaki. I have a suggestion. It seems as if it will work. I could remember when Clandestine was first initiated into the position of chairman of GCOM. And in an effort to get her to fall in line for the PPP, they threw a set of big snakes in our yard. And I think that automatically put her in the right frame of mind to do what the PPP wanted. Since those snakes worked for the PPP, I think they can work for the coalition. Somebody got to get wise now and throw a few snakes in our yard, because she seemed to have a serious fear for snakes. The other thing is, a racist party does not exist on its own like that. When you're racist, it's not an overnight thing. It's something ingrained. And to look forward for changes from this racist apartheid regime is like asking for the impossible. Jagdeo is bent on getting what he wants in Guyana. And the ultimate goal is to exclude black people from every work of life. He must control everything they do. He must decide how, when, where they should receive what. And if it is not in keeping with his philosophy, his racist attitude, his apartheid-like behavior, or his apartheid behavior, it would never manifest. So when Fat Boy, Catfish Ali, stands up and says this is going to happen, we know within a short while, Jagdeo counters and everything goes according to what Jagdeo wants. I don't know, but I think Guyanese, or more so African Guyanese, will have to make a hard decision. You either take what is being given to you and there is no future, or you decide to make the sacrifice now and have a good future for yourself and for those who are following you. There is no other way out. The Indian businessmen who have all the dollars behind them, the institution like the banks who are all manipulated by the Indians, every which way you turn, there's stymieing black people. And if you were to sit down and wait after praying to the Eternal Father, I think it will be a long wait. You have to get up and get. The people who own all the infrastructure in Guyana, we don't have to ask the question who they are. They are all owned by Indians. One day, somebody gets crazy and flattens some of those infrastructure in Georgetown. Just on Regent Street, you will hear a different ball game. I can tell you that. For some who may say, well, I am preaching violence, I couldn't care less. But nothing good comes without sacrifice and destruction. You look all over the world and see when there's a government change. Buildings have to go down. People have to die. That's the sacrifice you make when you want to have change. And to sit back and believe PPP will change and them will change, you're wasting your time. You have to make the change. Lives will have to be lost, and it will be on both sides, I can tell you that. But let those monstrosities for building, let them be flattened, and then you will see how many of them will turn against Jagdeo, because they know it is ripe for moments like that to start occurring. Clark, you have a wonderful day and God bless.
Have a good day yourself. Thank you. You know, the teacher in me will always teach. And so I'm researching as we're talking. I saw the headlines read, 3 private criminal charges filed against Claudette Singh. That was the Guyana Standard of July 29, 2020. APNU-AFC supporters filed private criminal charges against Claudette Singh. That was July 29, 2020, reported by the Guyana, South America, some kind of news. Criminal charges against GCOM chair. That was Guyana Chronicle, July 30th. And then, DPP drops private criminal charges against... Take your time. DPP drops private criminal charges against Claudette Singh, August 3rd, 2020. So I want you to recognize folks who have been asking. The DPP moved with alacrity. The PPP cabal, they were installed on the 2nd of August 2020. Remember that? By the 3rd of August 2020, those criminal charges against Claudette Singh were dropped. Please recognize that. In short, the day after the PPP was installed, those charges were dropped. Are you saying to me that the PPP is that efficient? Or am I to believe that there were prior agreements? There were agreements made prior to the installation of the PPP that once installed, these are the things which you ought to do as payback for this installation. What were the charges filed against Claudette Singh? The charges filed against Claudette Singh were basically, all of them could be construed as misconduct in public office. And they all surrounded what the accusers considered breach of the recount order, breach of ROPA, right? And order, what was it, order 60, right? The charges surrounded those things. And so to have them drop the day after the PPP was installed, I want to believe now that I'm looking at it from this point of view. There must have been some pre-existing agreements. That's all I'm thinking. I'm musing, remember? I'm musing. This is my morning of musings. It's now 8:59. I can take another call or so. Let me see if there's a voice note. Because I'm preparing to take my leave of you. I have other things to do, like work and so on. And let me remind you that this thing is running on water. It's the 1st of September. We have not made our August bills as yet. It's some people who have made their commitments and they're sticking to it. There are others who have made commitments that they are not honoring. And there are some of you who are simply freeloaders. Get on the train. Get on the train. Assist us to keep this thing going. You can contact me on 6225933 to know how you can make your financial and other contributions. Right? Those of you who have Cash App, it is $BUXT. Just put a note for Kams TV. Right? And those of you who are local, you can contact me. You can send your contributions via MMG. I will tell you how to do it. If you're overseas and you want to contribute, we have Western Union, we have MoneyGram. Simply contact me on the WhatsApp number, the same one you always call every morning, and I will advise you how to get the financing to us. But this thing is running out of water, and things getting tighter by the day. More demands are made of me. I have to go out into the fields ever so often now. Listen, I know I have an advisory service. Trust me. Every day, I have to set aside time to advise people up and down the coast about how to deal with community issues, government issues, political issues. Come, you all help me to show a little weight. Okay? Good. Some people are going to say begging. All I'm doing is asking for you to carry your part in this struggle. Help us financially to continue to do what we are doing. So far, you've been giving us good reports. It's good for you. We've been doing a good job. Help us to continue to do it. That's all I'm asking. I'm begging. Call A Live. Good morning. Call A Live. Good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki. Kadaki, you know, these things that what you're talking about, you just going over for maybe enlighten people who does not maybe know or understand what it's all about. Kadaki, from the time you guys start your show, you talk of certain things and it just open your knowledge to understand that these things been going on for years and years and years. If you look at politicians who were in Guyana and their children, it's not in Guyana. These children is outside the country. So all of them knew Guyana was not changing. This is something I heard my mom talk about. And my mom passed on. And it's the only thing it's coming now. And one person I heard Uncle Malcolm Parrish talk about the same thing. And where is all these kids? Outside, everybody tried to send their children outside. And the ones who could not, get anything to help out with their family, those are the ones who stay in Guyana. Because some people just did not want to leave, they prefer to stay there. So these things been going on all along, and then the things that really hurt to know that these so-called politicians just turn their face on the other side or turn the cheek and let us slap them one side and then talk them the other side. They know, no, I don't care, no one cannot tell me that they did not see this. If people out of the country and can tell you that this is what was going on for the longest while, they know. And they just turn their face the other side because they get a little handout. They get a couple thousand, 100,000, 300,000, all this kind of stuff they get for themselves. Come on. You mean to tell me my country, my village or my hometown, you are desecrate upon me for me to say it, and then you mean I must turn my other cheek and allow you to continue to piss on me when the time comes? Come on, man. But you know, you're not giving up. You continue to progress and talk and talk and talk. But people getting tired and fed up. I'm telling you, you know, there's so much people who does not even belongs to Guyana can tell you what is going on. Or sometimes people hear you speak and they say, what country you from? And you say, well, I'm Guyanese. And they would say, what part of Guyana you from? I think to tell them where I'm from. I'm from Buxton. I do not hide where I'm from. And they would say, my God, you know, so-and-so was in Buxton and da-da-da, and they see this and they see that. People talking. So you don't tell me that they know what President Ali, what Johnson, all of them was going on with. They know. But they did not push the issue because you know why? The same thing when you're talking about race. Nobody wants to address the race. You have to address race. You have to address it. Because I have Indian friends and they tell me, oh, they don't talk about race. I say, you have to talk about race. Then my friend reached out to me and she said, you know what? My mother is Indian and my father is black. And we know what is going on. She said, Indian people going to vote for Jabdo no matter if he kill them or he give them whatever, he may give them nothing, they will still vote for them because they don't want black man to rule them. Plain as day, she came out plain and she told me that. So what else? Because of how you train your children, when you raise them and you tell them, and mind well, when they come out to this country and they see how other people live, they try their best along, but sometimes a lot of them cannot keep it. They have to bring out the racism outside. And people does not play with them. People does not play with them here because I see it happen. And I felt bad for her, but I pulled her aside and said, you just cannot behave like that. You cannot behave like that. And then she said, Auntie, you're right, you're right. Do not behave like that, because if you behave like that, people's not going to want to bother with you, because people going to see through you what you are. And at the end of the day, it was her husband, but he tell her like it is. I was so shocked when he opened up to her and he just tell her. And I had to tell her, I pull her aside and said, you see, this is exactly what I was trying to explain to you. But he opened his mouth because how she was behaving. So what you doing there, you just telling us or enlightening us, but it's been going on for ages.
Thank you, caller.
You're not aware of it. Nobody wants to deal with it. Kadaki, have a blessed day.
Thank you, caller. I'm about to close the show. Let me give you all some reminders. You all see the man on the screen there? The gun he got in the hand was wrong man report. It was after the elections 2020. Yeah, look. Lest y'all forget. Look another one. The other one going away. Watch. Look how policemen running.
What's the man do to police, boy?
Turn back, I kill him for them. Turn back. Turn back, you go behind these boys. You go behind these boys. And them fucking body just get break by. Go try me.
Stack reminders. Y'all sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Don't stand up for your rights. Do not stand up for your rights. That's my recommendation for you. Lay back. Don't stand up for something. Lie down and collect any and everything. That's my recommendation. I'm fed up.
The Joint Opposition APNU-AFC and the WPA invite you to come rally against the high cost of living, corruption, extrajudicial killings, and rally for a clean voters list. On Saturday, the 3rd of September, at the Golden Grove Market Street from 4:30 p.m. Speakers include Opposition Leader Aubrey C. Norton, Leader of the AFC, Kemraj Ramjatan, Vince Roy Jordan, Kati Hughes, Reyes Rupnarain, Kadaki Amsterdam, Robin Simon, and Shaniqua Haynes. After 2 years, Guyana is at its lowest. It's time to mobilize. It's time for boots on the ground. Saturday, September 3rd, at the Golden Grove Market Street, East Coast, Demerara, from 4:30 p.m. The Joint Opposition APNU-AFC and the WPA invite you to come rally against the high cost of living, corruption, extrajudicial killings, and rally for a clean voters list. On Saturday, the 3rd of September, at the Golden Grove Market Street from 4:30 p.m. Speakers include Opposition Leader Aubrey C. Norton, Leader of the AFC, Kemraj Ramjatan, Vince Roy Jordan, Kati Hughes, Reyes Rupnarain, Kadaki Amsterdam, Robin Simon, and Shaniqua Haynes. After 2 years, Guyana is at its lowest. It's time to mobilize. It's time for boots on the ground. Saturday, September 3rd, at the Golden Grove Market Street, East Coast, Demerara, from 4:30 p.m.